There's two different aspects of the pricing. You got customer pricing and you got carrier pricing. So before you even get into customer pricing, you want to talk about carrier pricing, because you can't go to your customer and just throw out a price and then hope to God it sticks when you go to the market. So you want to do your research when you're talking about pricing. So we'll start with the carriers. Let's say that you have an offer from a client. You know, you've done your research, you got a book of business going, or you have a prospect that you're talking to, and they email you a load offer, or you're talking to them and he says or she says, hey, I got a load that's picking up out of, you know, South Texas and I need you to bring it to Michigan. Okay, so you get a few details on that. One is, when does it pick up? That's important because they may be talking today, they may be talking next month. The prices are going to vary, the market fluctuates. So first thing you want to do is gather the information from the client about the load, or the prospect about the load. So first thing you're going to ask is, when does it pick up? Get that information first. When does it deliver? And the reason you want to know when it delivers is because you need to know if you need a solo driver or if you need a team driver. If it's a 2-day transit, you're not going to use a solo driver on that. I mean, the drivers are on ELDs. A solo driver is not going to be able to go from Texas to Michigan in one day. So you're going to need a team driver on that, and that's also going to affect your price. It's going to be more because you got 2 drivers in the truck. You're not paying 1 guy, you're paying 2 guys. So when does it pick up? When does it deliver? Determine if you need a solo driver or if you need a team driver. And then you also want to know the weight of the shipment, because that does play a difference. I mean, the more weight on a truck, obviously the more wear and tear on a truck. Carriers take that into consideration. Also, the more fuel they're using. The heavier the load, the more fuel they're using. So get the weight of the truck, and that's also a good selling point. If it's a lower weight shipment, then you can use that in negotiating a better price. So get the weight of the shipment. If it's a refrigerated shipment, get the temperature of the shipment, because again, that plays into the refrigeration unit running. It takes more fuel, more diesel. So get the temperature of the freight. And then once you have that information, now you want to go out and you want to source the carrier and you want to get some pricing. There's a lot of different ways to go out there and get pricing. I'm sure everybody on here is familiar with DAT. If you're not, DAT has a really good tool on there called Rate Matrix, and they have this new feature called RateCast. And RateCast is an AI-generated hypothetical. We feel like this is where the rates are going to go. So DAT's been in business for a long time, and they've collected years and years of data on rates. So people that sign up for DAT, for their subscription to DAT Load Board and DAT Rate View and RateCast, they agree to have their TMS capture the rates that they're paying. So they integrate that into DAT, and then DAT uses that data to forecast rates or to show rates that are being paid. And that's really helpful for anybody out there, because you can see what other companies are paying. And there's a little report up in the upper right-hand corner there that says, hey, on this lane, this is the low that we've seen paid, this is the high that we've seen paid, and this is how many companies that we got samples from. So that's important too. Let's say you're looking on the Texas to Michigan lane, and you see a low rate of 4,500 and a high rate of 5,800. Now that's a pretty wide range, but a lot of factors go back into play there. One, the weight, the temperature. Was it a team driver? Was it a solo driver? So you got to take that into play. That information is not shared on there, just the low and the high. And then also, how many companies are reporting? Let's say you only have 3 companies reporting. Okay, so that's very low for that range. That's very low. So that tells me a couple things. One, it tells me somebody had the load, if they're at the 4,500 range, they had that load, you know, well in advance, one, and they probably had a very good carrier that they used regularly that did it for a reasonable amount, that was traveling that lane or needed that lane. And on the high end of it, it tells me maybe somebody got in a pinch and they had to load it the same day that they got the load for whatever reason. Maybe a carrier fell off, or maybe they got the load late and they underbid it, but they had to get the freight moving. So what they did is they bought the truck. So they made sure they got the truck and they serviced the client. So if you see a range like that and you see companies, low number of companies reporting, take that into consideration when you're pricing it out there. But now that you've seen that and you see the low, you see the high, okay, that's a pretty big range, so I don't know really where to quote on that. So now what you want to do is you want to go on there and you want to take a look at the trucks that are posted on there, trucks that are actually looking on that lane. When you go onto DAT, you can search it from an origin region. Let's say the load was picking up in McAllen, Texas. You can do straight McAllen, Texas, 25-mile radius, and see how many trucks are in that area posted that want to go up to Michigan. If you don't get any good results, then widen your search. Maybe you go out 50 miles, maybe you go out 150 miles. and you get more trucks, more results that are posted up. Now keep in mind, the farther that you go out and find a truck, let's say you expanded that search to 150 miles outside of McAllen, you may find trucks that are all the way over in Laredo, Texas. That's about a 2-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive by truck. You're gonna know, if you're gonna source the truck from Laredo, Texas, that your rate's gonna be a little bit more, because they have to do what is called deadhead. They're driving over there with their truck empty to pick up your load. And so they're taking a risk there too, because who's to say when they get there that the load didn't cancel or whatever the case may be. So they're gonna charge you more to deadhead down there. So what you wanna do is you wanna jump on, once you got that list of carriers, is you wanna call and get some sample pricing. Call the carriers, tell them the lane, tell them the specifics of the lane that you gathered, when it picks up, when it delivers, temperature of the load, weight of the load, and ask them what they need for a rate. I mean, do your negotiation. If you have a rate in mind that you want to be at based on what you saw, you know, you got the 45 and the 58, they may say, what are you offering? Start low. You can always go up, but you can never come back down. And you don't want to leave money on the table.
Right.
You don't want to throw out $5,800 and be like, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah.
If they say that immediately, you know you left money on the table. They would have done it for cheaper. So you want to start out low. It's a negotiation, just like it is with the client. You may say 4,500 and they say, oh, no, I can't do it for that. Okay, what's your price? That's your opportunity to ask them directly. They may counter with, I need 55. Okay, now we're $1,000 apart. Now let's start negotiation. Well, I know that you're, 2 hours out there. I understand that. But this is, if it is a light load, start using your selling points. This is a light load. The temperature's high. You don't have to run the reefer too hard on it. It delivers on this date. If he was posted up that he needs to go to Michigan, use that as a selling point. Say, hey, look, I'm putting you right where you want to go. You probably have a backhaul from up there. I'm going to get you right where you need to go up there. So use those as a selling point up there and try to negotiate that price down. Now you got a price from the carrier. Let's say you got him at $5,000. Okay, he's agreed. I'll deadhead from Laredo down to McAllen. I'll pick up your load for $5,000 and I'll take it up to Michigan. Solo carrier or team driver, whatever the case may be. All right, so now you have your price. Now you're going to go back to your customer and you're going to add on your margin. Now before you go do that, you also want to take a look on these load boards. There's a thing called lane makers. And lane makers are trucks that post historically in those areas or on that lane that consistently run that. And it's going to give you the information. How often are they posting? How many trucks are they posting? So use that information. If that's a lane that they run very, very regularly, then keep that carrier in mind. You want to add that to your system, because if they're constantly running that lane, you can get them for a better price. If you're just buying a truck and he doesn't really want to go to that area, you're going to pay more. But if you get a carrier that consistently runs that lane, that tells you that he needs that lane for probably his back haul or his front haul to get another load from up there. So you can get them at a cheaper price. So take a look at your lane makers and see who's posting out there. Make some calls to them. Get some pricing from them, see if it matches up with what you got on the spot market from the guy that you just got a price from. And then also look in your TMS. If you've ran that load before, do a historical search in your TMS and see if you've ran that lane before or something specifically around that area. So again, in the TMS, you can segregate the loads or the lanes, and you can do a expanded search. So see how far out you've actually ran loads. Maybe you didn't run any loads from McAllen to Michigan, but maybe you ran them from Dallas to Michigan, or maybe you ran them from Houston to Michigan, or maybe you ran them from Laredo to Michigan. So look at those lanes that you've ran in that area before, and look at the pricing that you paid on that before, and then also call those carriers that you've used on those lanes before and see if they're able to do it, or see how often they're down there and able to do that. Now, once you have that pricing, now obviously you want to go back to your customer and you want to make an offer. So this is where it becomes tricky. Again, you don't want to leave money on the table, but you don't want to price yourself out either. So you know what the market is doing based off of your research. You've talked to multiple carriers, you've talked to your lane makers, you know what you've ran it for in the past inside of your TMS, or somebody else has ran it inside your company on that TMS. And again, that's another good point. You could be talking to people inside your company that run that lane pretty consistently and say, hey, what do you think I'm going to pay on this? Get some information from them. Just because you haven't ran it doesn't mean one of your counterparts hasn't ran it, or somebody inside the system has ran it. So see what they're doing with it. But now you go back to the customer and you got to negotiate it. So if it's picking up that day, it's a hot load for them. They just got it across for them. They're obviously having problems. So you can price it a little bit higher. If it's going out next week, you're going to want to price a little bit more competitively. And the reason I say that is because they're still waiting on pricing from other companies. You're not the only one pricing it. Again, so you want to be competitive with it. And when you're being competitive with it, you need to ask yourself, you know, what do I need to make on this load in order for it to make sense? Obviously, you're taking some risk out there by being the broker. You know, your relationship with your client, if you do bad, or not you, the carrier does bad on the shipment, maybe he shows up late for shipping, maybe he shows up late for drop, whatever the case may be, maybe he's got damages and claims, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you're taking some risk here with the carriers. So when you price it, what makes sense? You know, a lot of people or a lot of companies say, hey, I want to live in the 9% margin range, 10% margin range, 12%, whatever the case may be. But you want to make it competitive and you want to get your foot in the door. If this is a normal client or somebody you're already doing business with, you can price it differently because they know your service level, they know your communication, they know how well you do, so you can be a little bit more aggressive with your pricing. If it's a brand new prospect or a brand new client, then you're going to want to be much more competitive with your pricing. So you're going to want to go in low on your margin. Don't shoot for the stars and say, I want to make $600 on this load. You're probably going to price yourself out, especially if it doesn't move for a couple days. If it's moving the same day, you might get lucky. But if not, you want to price it low. So I would go in, typically around a 6% margin. Maybe make a couple $100 on it. And yes, that's low on a shipment that you're billing $5,000 on and you're taking a lot of risk on. But you want the opportunity, one, to get your foot in the door. That's the name of the game here, is to get your foot in the door with new clients. So price competitively. Then you can justify higher rates with your service after you've shown that.
Right.
So going competitively with your pricing, with your client, based off of what you know you're going to pay the carrier on a new prospect, going competitively and show them your service level. Show them your communication, show them that you can get it done on time. They're not going to have to worry about it. You're taking time, putting time back on their plate so they have other things to do inside the company and get it done. So you can go leaner on the margins with new prospects, and you can go higher on the margins with current prospects, if that makes sense.
After you've done...
Yeah, after you've done a number of loads with them. Again, if you've done one load with them, again, don't shoot for the moon because, again, you're going to price yourself out, and they're going to say, hey, his prices are, way too much. Don't do that to yourself. Keep your margins low to begin with and really show them that you're someone that they can rely on to not only pick up the shipment on time, but deliver it on time, and you got good communication throughout the transit. We've talked about that in other podcasts, the communication level that you need with these clients. That's what they really rely on. They don't want to have to be chasing down their trucks. If they've given you 10 loads, they want you to report on those 10 loads before they have to call out and say, where are my trucks? Don't be that person. You want to be ahead of the game, get them their information, their updates before they ever even think about passing on the updates to their sales team. So once you get the shipments in, you get a couple shipments under your belt, then you can slowly start to notch it up. And you're going to have to notch it up regardless. Throughout the year, the markets change. If it's dead in one area for a month, the next month, something might be coming out, something might be happening. Even if you're running dry vans, like in the middle of the summertime, this is a good example. In the middle of the summertime, if you're running dry vans out of Florida, and your carriers are used to running dry vans out of Florida, during the summertime or during the springtime, the market changes considerably. So from November in Florida till March in Florida, dry van pricing is very, very cheap. It's competitive. I mean, you're paying them a little more than their gas just to get them out of there. There's not a lot of freight coming out of there, so they're willing to take it at cheaper prices. Now comes March. When March comes in, now you have a bunch of field stuff happening down in Florida. You got bin watermelons, you got peppers, squash, eggplant, all this stuff, and a lot of this stuff can be run on dry vans with vents in them. And so what these carriers will do is they'll go down to their local truck stop and they'll have produce vents put in their vans. Basically what that means is in the front of the truck, they're going to have the truck stop cut a hole in their van, put a vent in it, and in the back on one of the doors, they're going to do the same thing. That way air pushes through there. Because these products don't necessarily need to be refrigerated because they're coming straight out of the field, so they can use them on vented vans. So now this van carrier that was getting paid a little more than gas money to come out has transitioned over to moving produce, and he wants more money because he's moving produce, even though he's not a reefer carrier.
Yeah.
But he's still moving produce. So if you were paying him $1.89 a mile up until March, you can expect in the springtime, from March until June, until the Florida season ends, you're going to be paying probably close to $3 a mile. So don't count on those carriers to be doing the same pricing the entire time. So again, when markets fluctuate, that's why it's important to be up on the markets and understand what's going on with the markets. If you don't know what's going on with the markets, you're going to get yourself in a real bad pinch with pricing. I mean, I've seen guys lose as much as $2,000 on a load. That's a heavy hit, and if it's not your company and you're working for somebody else, you better believe you're going to get a call from your manager. What the hell happened here? Well, I mispriced it. No shit.